A very strange incident unfolded in Mombasa yesterday. Mumias East legislator Peter Salasya was involved in an incident where some people, armed men, made an attempt to arrest him. Okay, obviously these were the Subaru boys. And so, it appears that the Subaru boys were after Peter Salasya. Okay? But here's the strange thing. They failed. How now? You know, anybody who has been following this for any length of time, and anybody who understands how these Subaru boys work, that is virtually an impossibility. It is extremely difficult for the Subaru boys to be sent out. Kwenda rokoto yo jamaa. And they go and they come back empty-handed. Very strange, trust me. Very strange. On my show today, I want us to start with this incident and talk about a legislator called Peter Salasya. And I assure you, you're going to be shocked. This is national politics, not politics about Western Kenya, by the way. So it concerns all of us. Okay. Before we go back to that incident, because there is something about that incident that is off. Very much off. Doesn't make sense. Okay? Before we go back to that, let us discover some eye-popping developments around Bwana Peter Salasya. Okay? Now, politically speaking, this young, still unmarried, first-term legislator of Mumias East, politically speaking, is gold standard. Okay? Why? Because, in case you have not noticed, the politics in our country is changing so rapidly that most people don't even know what is happening. How so? The Gen Z factor. There is more than enough evidence to suggest that all politicians, all leading politicians, all people with political ambitions in Kenya right now have got one big headache, one big problem they're trying to get ahead of, with the knowledge that Yule Atatoboa, they will win an election easily. Okay, and that problem is Gen Z voters. I believe it is rather obvious. Gen Zs are many. And Gen Zs are now very politically aware in the country called Kenya. And therefore we can safely say, the next president of Kenya to be elected generally on the ballot cannot be president, can never make it to be president without support of the Gen Z. I'm sure you can agree on that. And the same rule applies right across the board. It will be near impossible for any person in Kenya to win any serious political seat, in fact any political seat, without Gen Z support. That is what it has come to. And therefore, you can now begin to understand why Bwana Salasya is suddenly gold standard. Now what is puzzling about Bwana Salasya is the fact that he seems to have so much money around him. Too much money. Okay? And then add to that the fact that unlike other legislators, he has made very spirited efforts to become popular right across the western part of the country, the Mulembe Nation. He has held successful Meet the People rallies in all the 5 counties of the Mulembe Nation. Okay? Now isn't that strange? Because even if you tell me he's interested in being governor, you will not convince me that he wants to be governor in 5 counties. Can you convince me that? No. So what is this guy up to? Now what all this information tells us very clearly is that Bwana Peter Salasya is being financed. is being financed by a big financial power, a big political power in the country called Kenya. Indeed, a presidential candidate. There is a presidential candidate who's going to win the next elections, who is using Bwana Salasya as a key point man in their campaign to win the presidency of the Republic of Kenya. Who can it be? Okay? I have seen some analysts suggesting that it can be none other than President William Samoei Ruto. Okay? Now, that theory doesn't fly with me. Okay? For a number of reasons. But I believe the most obvious is the following. Okay, use Salasya as a point man. And so he becomes very popular in Western Kenya. And therefore is able to garner a lot of votes for any candidate from Western Kenya. However, you can never convince me that Bwana Salasya's block of votes he can transfer to a candidate called Ruto. Do you think that is possible in today's Kenya? You cannot even convince me that Bwana Salasya's votes he can transfer to a presidential candidate called Raila at the moment. You can't convince me. Because the way I read Kenyan politics right now, anything associated with Ruto, anything that has got away from Ruto, getting any votes from Kenyans, hiyo itakuwa kazi. Okay? And at the moment, we know that Raila is very closely associated. In fact, is working with the Ruto regime. And in any case, the Ruto regime is so busy right now putting out fires, limping from crisis to crisis, limping from trouble to trouble, political problem to political problem. I don't think they have breathing space to start sponsoring point men at this stage. It is possible, but I don't think so. And the biggest evidence of all is the incident we started with that happened in Mombasa yesterday, where some mysterious men, shall we just call them the Subaru boys, attempted to abduct Peter Salasya. That tells you immediately that what has happened here is that Bwana Salasya has attracted the attention of Ruto's political police. Because, bila kizungu mingi, the Subaru boys are an arm of the Ruto political police. Okay? Now I'm well aware of the fact that Kenyans are in love with the word stage managed. Okay? And therefore I know many people say, no, Chris, this was a stage managed thing, so that people are assured that Ruto is not financing him. What is happening here, my dear Chris, and you're not seeing, is that Ruto is trying to confuse us so that we can never guess that actually he is the one financing Salasya. I know that's what you're going to tell me. I don't agree. Okay? I do not agree. Because, in case you didn't know, the way the Subaru boys work, the way those Subaru boys work, they are not wired or built for any stage managed manenos. Those are very serious people. Remember, they've taken away lives. They are merciless. They are brutal. They wouldn't have any idea on how to stage manage something. In fact, if you try to use them to stage manage something, it would go terribly wrong. They're not wired like that. And so, we must answer the question, what went wrong with this abduction? How come it was not carried through? Okay? Now, I don't know if you have noticed that the abductions must happen in a certain way for them to be successful. Okay? That is, very few witnesses, nobody saw anybody's face, etc., etc. If it does not meet that criteria, then it is abandoned. And for obvious reasons. These people are not stupid. They don't want legal problems. They don't want anybody with any evidence that can link any face to what they're doing. Let me give you a quick example. I'm sure many of us remember the time when the former Nandi legislator, Alfred Gichuru, was abducted, coming from church with his family, and something went wrong. The Subaru boys underestimated Bwana Gichuru's ability to fight back. The man resisted. You remember the video? It was all over social media. So much so that a crowd gathered. People took videos of the abduction ongoing. And it is true, they still took him. But then immediately after that, something happened that normally never happens with these abductions. He was booked in at Kumekucha police station. I'm sure you remember that. If you cast your mind back to all the abductions, these people are never taken to any cop shop. However, in this instance, since things had gone wrong, it was quickly changed from an abduction to an arrest. Okay? And that's how he ended up in police stations. His lawyer stand up, etc., etc. So there you are. Now what went wrong in Mombasa is that this operation was carried out at night. You know, at night you cannot see people's faces clearly. And I suspect the Subaru boys may have been overconfident. Huyu ni Salasya, mtu wa bangi. Hii rais tutamchukua haraka sana. He's a weak guy. Something like that. But things did not unfold like that. And so the abductors were forced to abandon their mission. This is what I strongly believe. Based on the information I have and the research I've done, this is what I strongly believe happened. Yeah. You mean to tell me the Subaru boys are still operational? Mambo imeharibika kwa nchi na bado wanafanya hiyo kazi yao chafu. This government must be very short-sighted. Advisors to the powerful must either be asleep or these powerful people are not taking any common sense advice. You know, you measure the mood of a country. You look at the environment and you look at the situation and you quickly realize there are some things that cannot work. Yes, you may be able to successfully abduct people, but I assure you, where we have reached, it will backfire on you very, very badly. Okay? It is super fascinating the way our politics is changing so fast. Salasya is a young man, and therefore the Gen Zs can identify with him. It is also very easy for him, to be able to reach them, since Salasya was kijana wa mtaa just the other day before he became a legislator. It is more than interesting, and of course it is very much well worth noting how quickly, how fast our politics is changing. Indeed, Bwana Salasya is tomorrow's politician, and you know tomorrow in Kenyan politics is already here. Now this morning I received a very interesting and very touching email from a subscriber on this channel who has been with me for some years, and they were sending me a very nice birthday email which was very touching. They talked about the bridge, which they never really knitted when I first talked about it, but they said it has now come to pass, and it has helped them to bear the very difficult time. You remember the bridge I've always talked about that we need to cross to before we reach the new Kenya? That one. And they said that it has helped them a lot, personally, to bear these very difficult times that we Kenyans are passing through. Oh, that email touched me. And of course, walituma kakitu, and I'm so grateful. Well, you still have an opportunity. You can see details on your screens right now. And once again, I'd like to say asante sana in advance for those who are still coming. Of course, you know you still have a chance to enter into that draw, where we'll choose 20 people who will get the valuable super Kumekucha pass to everything Kumekucha, past, present, and future. But then most of all, you will be contributing to the growth and the move to the next level of the Kumekucha brand, or for a better Kenya. Asanteni sana. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.